again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this Atlantic Town Hall. We're so lucky to have wonderful moderators for tonight, as well as our wonderful contestants. My name is Vicky, and I work for the Green Party of Canada as Leadership Contest Coordinator. I just want to go through a couple of housekeeping things before passing it over to Jenica and to Peter. So you'll see that this session is being recorded, so those who aren't able to join us tonight will still be able to listen and participate. We have also disabled the chat for tonight. As some of you might have heard, there were some hateful anti-Black, racist, anti-Semitic, and sexist comments that occurred at our Prairie's Town Hall. And so we decided to take this additional step to help make this a safer space for everyone. Obviously, Atlantic Canadians are famously welcoming, so I'm sure that you will all want to say hi and interact with the contestants. You're welcome to engage on Twitter. You can use the hashtag #TheOtherLeadershipContest or GBC or CDN and you can also join in on our volunteer Slack workspace. You can still submit questions through the Q&A, which we'll be taking a look at and screening before passing along to the contestants. With that, I'll just pass it along to our moderators. So we have Peter Bevan-Baker, who is the leader of the official opposition in PEI, and Jenica Atwin, our MP for Fredericton, of course. Very inspiring examples of what Greens can do in the Atlantic. So over to you and take it away.
Well, thanks so much, Vicky. Et bonjour tout le monde et merci pour être avec nous aujourd'hui. Je vais commencer avec land acknowledgement. C'est toujours important pour moi. Alors, I am here on the unceded, beautiful territory of the Wolastoq-Gawyuk. So, Gulizigoppa Wolastoquk, and I just want to begin, by thanking everyone for joining us and for, giving us your evening and your time, and particularly the candidates. Je tiens à vous dire combien je suis impressionnée par vous tous, en particulier par votre endurance au cours de ces derniers mois épuisantes. Vous devez être fatigués et épuisés, mais vous donnez vraiment de l'énergie au parti et à nous autres députés. Alors, je dois donc vous remercier du fond du corps. Je sais que c'est pas facile. Mon engagement à partir de ce moment est d'être un meilleur allié et un meilleur soutien de vos efforts. Je n'ai eu l'occasion de m'entraîner individuellement qu'avec quelques-unes d'entre vous, mais je vous dois être excusé, nous n'avons pas pu nous mettre en relation à ma côté. L'élément le plus difficile pour moi en tant que nouveau député a été l'équilibre entre vie professionnelle et vie privée. Parce que j'ai mère des deux petits garçons. Alors, je veux juste dire que l'une chose ce que je recherche dans votre direction, c'est quelqu'un qui soutient les familles et les parents dans leur poursuite de la politique, que ce soit en tant que candidat ou en tant qu'élu. Alors, sur ce point, je vais passer la parole à Peter.
Merci, Jenica. Good evening, everyone. Bonsoir, Kwe. I am coming from you in my kitchen in Prince Edward Island, or Abequit, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq. I should warn everybody that I am currently the single parent of 14 chickens and 2 dogs. The chickens are not with me in the kitchen, but the dogs are. My wife is in Newfoundland visiting her mother, so I apologize in advance for any interruptions that my 4-legged friends bring this evening. It's a real pleasure and it's a privilege to be part of this leadership contest forum this evening. I'm really looking forward to this. So thank you. It's also a pleasure to be co-hosting with Jenica. Last time I saw Jenica was during the campaign in Fredericton. First time we'd met, actually, and it was immediately apparent to me that Jenica was going to be a political star, and it hasn't taken her long to fulfill that ambition. So congratulations to you, Jenica. It's lovely to see you again, and I'm looking forward to hearing from all of the contestants. Thank you.
Great. So I know are we going to talk a little bit about kind of how the format goes, Vicky, or should we just jump right into it?
Yeah, I think it would be a good idea for the attendees to get a sense of what they can expect for the evening.
Okay, so I know we're going to start with about 60 seconds for each participant to just give a brief introduction. You're all pros at this now. I can't believe how many webinars you've been doing. It's incredible. So you're certainly well suited already, well prepared to be the leader of this party because of all the work you've put in. So you're going to have about 60 seconds. And it's kind of a random order. It's been predetermined, I believe, Vicky, if you've let everyone know. So yeah, just so great to hear from you. And whoever's first, go ahead and kick it off.
Yeah, so up first for the opening statements, we have David.
Thanks very much, Vicky and Peter and Jenica, for that lovely introduction. I'm coming to you from the southwestern corner of Vancouver Island. And this is the traditional territory of the Esquimalt, the Wisamic, the Sauk, the Songhees, and the Sequent First Nations. And I live here with my wife. We have 4 daughters, one still at home, going into grade 12. Alors, je comprends, Jenica, ce que tu disais quand il faut faire attention à nos familles. Et j'aimerais encourager tout le monde à poser vos questions en anglais ou en français. Vous êtes le bienvenu. Nous sommes un parti bilingue et un pays bilingue. I'd also just like to say that what I have to offer that's unusual in this race is that I have campaigned from Atlantic Canada to BC on winning green campaigns. And I'm able to win my riding here, the riding I ran in Esquimalt, San and Stuk in 2019. And I also see myself as a builder and uniter, and I'd love to help the Green Party as leader with those skills. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much, David. Up next, we have Animé.
Hello, and it is a pleasure to be back on the East Coast, albeit virtually, and to see that there's so many participants here tonight. That's wonderful. I'm coming to you from the traditional territories of the Mississauga, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat. And I'm looking forward to our discussion this evening. I was a former candidate in the 2019 elections, a former international affairs critic for the party. I spent a lot of time with a lot of pleasure convening Greens all across Ontario during the last election. I'm also a mother. My kids, I think, are lurking in another room, probably watching this debate right now. Et oui, je serais très, très content de prendre vos questions dans les 2 langues et de discuter notre futur ensemble et de considérer comment nous pourrons mettre plus de vert dans notre Parlement dans les prochaines élections. Merci.
Wonderful, thank you so much, Animé. Who do we have up next? Amita, go ahead.
Thank you. Hello everyone, bonjour à tous. Je parle avec vous ce soir du territoire non cédé du Musqueam, Squamish et Tsleil-Waututh of Colombie-Britannique. I am on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh people in BC. I am honored to be in this contest to present you with a vision of the party that focuses on justice and equity for all, that will bring us credibility through science, and that will prepare us for a future of both crises and opportunities. J'apporte mon expérience en tant que personne ayant une identité complexe, des années en tant que scientifique en astronomie et en astrophysique, et en tant que survivant d'un traumatisme dû à une catastrophe climatique. Prendre l'initiative avec compassion et empathie, nous pouvons accueillir les gens pour construire notre avenir ensemble. We've seen with both Jenica and Peter what happens with communication that speaks to all. It's time to bring everyone into this movement and grow, inspiring the country towards an ecologically wise future where no one is left out. Thank you. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. La prochaine est Miriam.
Good evening, everyone. I am in Montreal, Quebec, Tiohtià:ke. It's the unceded Kanien'kehá:ka territory. So my name is Miriam Haddad. I am 32 and I am a socialist born in Syria and a proud Canadian since '97. For the past 7 years, I have been working as an immigration lawyer specializing in refugee claims from the Middle East. And I joined the party last August and ran during the last federal elections. I was appointed on the shadow cabinet as a critic in immigration and refugees. It is special for me to participate in these regional town halls all over Canada, even though it's done virtually. it emphasizes the importance for the Green Party to decentralize, to centralize regionally, so that local members feel empowered and to elect Green MPs from coast to coast to coast. And during the last federal election, Jenica was able to win in Fredericton because her campaign was locally managed. It is volunteers and people on the ground that will make us stronger and more powerful in the House of Commons. So you folks did an amazing job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miriam. Next, we have Glenn.
Thanks. Good evening, everyone. I've been a mayor of a city. I own clean tech companies. I've led social service and community health centers. I've been an MP, a cabinet minister, and a mayor, but it's why I'm running that's important. Sachez que je veux travailler à réimaginer un Canada socialement juste, où les gens et les communautés prospèrent parce que les décisions gouvernementales, c'est des entreprises et des communautés guidées par des principes écologiques. Nous avons besoin d'une démocratie participative et saine, du respect de la diversité, de décisions fondées sur le développement durable, de la non-violence pour qu'ils puissent s'épanouir la société canadienne que je suis, tout comme vous, socialement juste et consciente de l'importance du défi écologique auquel nous faisons faire. Tous ces principes guident à la fois ma vie et mon travail, et je suis tout aussi convaincu que vous que ce sont les principes fondamentaux que motivent les Verts partout dans le monde entier. C'est pourquoi je me présente à la tête du Parti Vert du Canada. Merci et bonsoir.
Merci beaucoup, Glenn. Notre prochain candidat est Dimitri.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Here in Old Montreal, I'm coming to you from the unceded lands of the Haga Nation, who are recognized as the custodians of these unceded lands. Although born and raised in London, Ontario, I've lived and worked across Canada. I studied laws at the University of Toronto 30 years ago. I lived for a time with my partner and 2 children in Vancouver, and I now reside in Montreal, where I've spent a total of about 6 years. My work as a class actions lawyer enabled me to engage with clients from Atlantic Canada to the West Coast. I've litigated in the courts of most provinces. I've argued important matters at the Supreme Court of Canada. My work as an activist and independent journalist has also taken me to the front lines of the struggle for human rights and climate justice, both in Canada and abroad. Throughout all of this, I've learned that what binds Canadians is far more substantial and important than what divides us. And what binds us is our basic sense of human decency. Nous rejetons le racisme et la haine. We recoil at the terrible injustices that have been visited upon Indigenous peoples. We abhor extreme poverty, homelessness, and extreme wealth. We yearn for a society in which all persons, without exception, can achieve their full potential. We demand a society in which equality is more than a theory, in which every citizen can participate fully in the governance of our nation. Fundamentally, we Canadians are progressive, and that's why I'm calling for nothing less than a progressive revolution. At no time in our lifetimes, I believe, has the desire for transformational change been greater than it is today. Now more than ever is the time to be bold. We have only to seize the opportunity before us, and that's why I'm running to be the leader of the Green Party of Canada. Merci.
Merci beaucoup, Dimitri. Notre prochaine candidate est Judy Green.
Bonjour. I am in Mi'kma'ki, which is the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people here in Nouvelle-Écosse. And welcome everyone to my end of the country. I am so excited to be welcoming my fellow contestants to the East Coast. We have a lot to share here. I'd love to be able to take you around to see all the amazing things that we have here in Nova Scotia. I am a veteran. I am a computer science, software developer, a mother, a business owner, a grandmother. I have 3 grandchildren, the youngest of which is 1, and who will be moving to New Brunswick from Ontario. I'm so excited. And what we need across Canada is unity. We need it within our party as well. So much is working hard to divide us right now that we need communication. We need to understand that we're all working towards the same goals. and that we need our people on the ground. We need people in our EDAs. We need to give them the skills necessary to build regionally and to address regional concerns with the support of the federal national office. So it's really important that we don't just talk about it, but we have a plan to make that happen, and that we implement that plan to make sure that we grow the Greens across Canada from the ground up. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Judy. Next up is Courtney Howard.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having us over there. It really is a pleasure. I feel already like I'm on the East Coast. So I'm here in Chief Dragi's territory. This is the traditional territory of the Yellowknives Dene and the North Slave Métis. And this is one of the ground zeros of climate change. We're already 2.5 degrees Celsius warmer than we were when an 80-year-old elder was born. And in fact, because I work at the home of the most northerly CT scanner in the middle part of the Arctic as an emergency doctor, I often speak with elders who come down from really one of the most rapidly warming places in the world, which is the Mackenzie Delta. Up there, it's already 3 degrees Celsius warmer than it was when they were born. So this rapid landscape change, changes in food availability, and mental health impacts led me to do research and policy work at the intersection of climate change and health. So I spent about a decade doing that. I'm a nationally and internationally recognized expert. And you can check out a little bit of our work in the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment Healthy Recovery Report that's been getting quite a lot of press this week. I'm really proud of that report, partly because it shows some of the health opportunities of climate action. There's a lot that we can be gained by saving lives through reducing air pollution and getting people more active. So I believe I entered the race because I'm an emergency doctor and we're at a moment of overlapping planetary health crises. We know we have to solve the planetary health emergency of the coronavirus, which is a zoonotic disease that transferred from animals into humans, and climate change and the economic fallout all at once. I am constructing an evidence-based plan focused on a well-being-based economy with the different planks stretching out from that so that we can do what works, we can do it in a time-effective manner, and as many people have said, we can do it together. So thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Et pour le dernier, Andrew West.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Je m'appelle Andrew. My name's Andrew West. And rather than doing a traditional acknowledgement, because I'm someone that actually prefers action over words, right now, Ontario Power Generation wants to put more nuclear waste in this area. And as stewards of the environment, the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation are taking on this challenge. So that's something I want to draw everyone's attention to. I have been a 4-time Green Party candidate, so I know what it takes for this party to win. And that's what I want. That's my vision, is that this party wins. We have such amazing policies, but we can't sit on the sidelines any longer. I believe that the way to do that is to keep this party in the center, to attract as many voters as possible. So that means attracting voters who are disenfranchised with the NDP and the Liberals, but also people who are disenfranchised with the Conservative Party. We're talking about conservationists and family farmers, people who care about the environment, but know that the Conservatives aren't going to stand up for them. And to do this, we have to be fiscally responsible. I believe in making sure that we protect future generations from debt, as well as protecting our planet and our people. And the best way to do that, as has been shown time and time again in the Atlantic Canada, is to make sure that we have strong EDAs, that we're working on the ground, so that when we are in between elections, we're walking. So when an election comes, we're ready to run. That's the vision that I bring for the Green Party of Canada. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and thanks to all the contestants. I'll turn things over to Jenica and Peter for our first question and for the rest of the debate.
I just wanted to say that you mentioned that you had your 4-legged might interrupt. I've got my 2-legged in here interrupting me at the moment, but so that might happen, but that's such is life. I also wanted to say, you guys are all fabulous. I'm so excited. I think that our members have their work cut out for them picking amongst our incredible group of leaders here. And you've already brought so much to the Canadian landscape and the political conversation. You've already made change. So I hope you're enjoying the journey. I'm sure it's difficult and grueling, but you're doing a fantastic job. So just thank you to everyone. I really, really appreciate your hard work and dedication. So I think we'll jump into the first question. Puisque les économies du Nouveau-Brunswick, et plus particulièrement celles de la province de Terre-Neuve et Labrador, sont largement dépendantes des combustibles fossiles, la question est la suivante. À titre de chef du Parti vert, quelles sont les actions que vous entreprendriez afin d'entamer une transition et combler le vide qui résultera de l'abandon de l'industrie des énergies fossiles? I'm not sure who goes first.
Feel free to let contestants know what order you'd like them to speak in, and you can just cue them when it's their turn.
I was going to say alphabetical, but there's lots of A names. So the first person I'm seeing is Andrew West. Would you like to answer the question first, Andrew?
Sure, but if you could you just repeat it in English, please?
Sure, I can. So basically it's that, let me pull up the question. So economies in New Brunswick, and particularly, the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, they're largely dependent still on fossil fuels. So the question is, as the leadership of the Green Party of Canada, what actions would you take to ensure that the transition occurs as we abandon the fossil fuel industry?
Sure. Well, there's still about 6,000 jobs in the oil and gas industry, I believe, in Newfoundland and Labrador. So first we got to do is stop the $6 billion that the oil and gas industry receives and transition that towards the green economy. And to do this, we can take that money and put it into R&D projects that are ready for people available for when they want to transition to those jobs. And we have to provide the training and have the door open for people to transition from the oil and gas sector into the green economy. I think that that's a big way, because I truly believe that a lot of people that work in the oil and gas industry, they're more important. They just want jobs, and they're loyal to the oil and gas industry. But if you provide them with a different opportunity, and an opportunity that is good for the economy and for the environment, that's something that I think that they will take up. But another thing I also want to address is that there is a lot of unemployment in the area, and we need to seriously get our guaranteed livable income in place and address some of the concerns of the people who are unemployed there and have them protected. So as we do this transition into a green economy, which is the fastest growing sector in Canada, is the green energy economy. When we make that transition, people are prepared both from the guaranteed livable income and the fact that we have put our money into resource and development so that they can make that easy transition, both from a job standpoint and from an energy sector standpoint.
Excellent. I wanted to add as well that there is time for a 30-second rebuttal, and each contestant has up to 3 throughout the evening. So if anyone would like to do a rebuttal on that, you're certainly welcome to do that. Going once, going twice. Sold. Judy.
I just have a question, even though I just said it. Are you doing rebuttals right after the person, or does everyone go first and then you do the rebuttals?
I'm not sure. That's a good question. I believe, and for me, it makes sense to go right after the person, but that may interrupt what someone else might be saying or thinking. So what do you think, Vicki?
I think having a rebuttal at any time, as you've suggested, is a good idea. So you can just raise your hand if you want one of those.
Okay.
Thank you. With our Mission Possible plan, Hibernia was kind of our linchpin that was going to continue producing oil while we transition the rest of the country off oil and gas. I think it's important that we still do that, but we have to be looking at decentralizing energy production, especially in the Maritimes. And that means working with the provinces to ensure the legislation changes. Here in Nova Scotia, we have municipalities that have retained the legislative ability to produce their own energy and push that energy back onto the grid. But many of the municipalities have given up that that ability to do so. We have energy co-ops, local people organizing who want to be creating small-scale solar farms and wind farms that provide energy for their local areas and push them back onto the grid. Unfortunately, in Nova Scotia, the Nova Scotia Power, even though it's called Nova Scotia Power, it is actually owned by a private enterprise called Emera. And so there needs to be cooperation with them in order to change the rules that will allow that to happen. So that by decentralizing energy production, we're keeping jobs and profits within our communities, which is really vital in rural, especially rural Atlantic Canada. Keeping those jobs here. People have oil and gas jobs, but they often have to move to other parts of the country. And that's wonderful if you choose to do that. I've lived in 5 different provinces around Canada, and I've loved every moment. But many people really leave reluctantly. I want to keep jobs here in Atlantic Canada if that's where people want to have employment. We need to be looking at increasing food security in our area as well. So just because somebody is in energy production right now, perhaps their dream is to become a farmer. And being a farmer is something that we're needing more and more, but it's a real challenge going forward when people don't have the money, the capital to buy land. So we need to look at land trusts, looking at also small, local, sustainable farming. With COVID,
I'm going to cut you off there, Judy.
Okay.
I'm sorry, just interest of time. Yeah, sorry.
Sure, no problem.
If anyone would like a rebuttal, you can raise your hand. If not, Dimitri, you're next in my view of my window.
Merci, Jenica. Il faut surtout, pour protéger les résidents, les citoyens des provinces maritimes, adopter un plan d'investissement public massif dans la région, surtout dans l'énergie renouvelable et dans la transportation publique. Pardon. Je pense surtout aux communautés, aux petites communautés qui sont loin des grandes communautés urbaines dans la région. Il faut les connecter avec un investissement public très important. Deuxièmement, on ne peut pas dépendre du secteur privé pour protéger les plus vulnérables dans cette transition parce que nous avons appris, après des décennies d'une politique néolibérale ici au Canada, que le secteur privé pense surtout au profit et pas à la protection du public. Donc, moi, je veux renouveler l'idée que l'État a un rôle important à jouer dans la protection de nos citoyens. Il faut forcer l'industrie pétrolière de financer la restauration de la santé des régions polluées par l'industrie et il faut surtout adopter un revenu de base universel. Je suis tout à fait d'accord avec Andrew et je suis sûr que tous les candidats dans ce concours, dans cette course à la chefferie, soutiennent avec enthousiasme cette idée-là. C'est très important.
Merci beaucoup. Et Amita?
Merci. Je pense que c'est immédiatement important pour avoir un avenir avec la crise climatique. Et dans cette transition, de ne pas abandonner un seul individu. Alors, nous devons diversifier les systèmes d'énergie et soutenir ce changement. Et aussi soutenir tous les travailleurs et travailleuses avec un revenu minimum garanti, mais aussi soutenir les transitions de carrière et un accès abordable à l'éducation. Et avec ces deux choses, on peut changer rapidement, je pense. Merci.
Et Miriam?
Oui, donc ce qu'il nous faut, c'est un Green New Deal qui va créer beaucoup de nouveaux emplois et qui vont aider à la transition des économies vers l'abandon des combustibles fossiles, autant du Nouveau-Brunswick que de Terre-Neuve. Et puis, en fait, ce que ça inclut, le Green New Deal, c'est tout d'abord, il faut faire un support vers premièrement, au niveau des industries de l'agriculture et forestière, tout d'abord. Il faut également construire des sources d'énergie renouvelables. Il faut avoir également des emplois verts fédéraux garantis pour tous les employés qui vont perdre leurs emplois, qui se retrouvent dans l'industrie. Et il faut également investir dans les services essentiels qui vont aider en fait à l'économie à aller vers une économie qui est plutôt centrée sur prendre soin de la planète et des gens. Donc, il y a aussi des jobs verts, autant dans les services de garde d'enfants, des services en santé mentale et en soins de longue durée. Ce sont également des emplois verts qui vont faire partie de ça. Merci.
Excellent, merci beaucoup. Et Courtney ou Dr. Howard? Je vais utiliser les titres aussi, Dr. Kuttner as well.
Merci. Oui, je pense que comme quelques autres candidats ont mentionné, c'est super important à ce moment de transition de multiples aspects, c'est super important de stabiliser les gens, d'offrir une mesure de sécurité qui leur donne l'opportunité de lever les yeux et regarder pour leurs prochains pas. Alors, une revenu de base garantie et aussi éliminer les frais pour les cours universitaires donne aux gens la possibilité de faire ce qui fait le plus de sens pour eux. Je pense que c'est super important d'accélérer les efforts avec but d'améliorer l'accès à l'Internet. Moi aussi, je vis dans un endroit rural et l'Internet, particulièrement durant COVID, apparemment, la différence entre l'Internet urbain et rural s'est empirée durant la pandémie et c'est difficile de travailler ici. Alors, quand on pense de l'économie virtuelle, il faut qu'on donne accès à cette économie à tout le monde et vraiment là, eux autres peuvent vraiment trouver leur meilleure place. Je pense que c'est aussi important d'investir dans la production d'énergie renouvelable. On avait un solar co-op ici à Yellowknife, ça a très bien passé. Et vraiment voir comment on peut améliorer l'agriculture et le prendre de quelque chose qui est souvent très... beaucoup de combustibles fossiles comme quelque chose qui est ingrédient dans ça, dans une agriculture qui est beaucoup plus renouvelable.
Excellent, merci beaucoup. Et la prochaine, c'est David.
Merci beaucoup pour la question. C'est une question essentielle pour notre avenir. Comment faire la transition vers l'énergie renouvelable? Et je vois ça comme vraiment essentiel de laisser pour compte l'énergie pétrolière et adopter l'énergie éolienne, géothermique, solaire. Pour faire ça, il faut construire un réseau Est-Ouest, de Terre-Neuve jusqu'ici en Colombie-Britannique. Le plus grand projet depuis qu'on a bâti les rails qui ont relié notre pays. Mais cette fois-ci, c'est un réseau énergétique qui va relier notre pays. Et puis, célébrons nos succès locaux aussi. Connectons l'énergie renouvelable partout où on peut le trouver. Ici, dans mon comté, la réserve autochtone a totalement terminé les générateurs en diesel et maintenant, ils sont entièrement solaires. Et il pleut beaucoup ici. C'est possible sur le terrain de faire la transformation. Célébrons nos succès et bâtissons ce projet national pour réunir notre pays et rencontrer nos défis énergétiques. Merci.
Excellent. Et la prochaine, c'est Glenn.
Excusez-moi, Jenica, merci beaucoup. Nous avons besoin de cibles fédérales plus ambitieuses et des investissements de l'Anti-Canada par le ACOA qui respectent les priorités de l'équité. Je pense que c'est très important de renforcer et faire des investissements dans les projets de recherche vert de l'économie durable qui est fait dans les universités du Nouveau-Brunswick, Nouvelle-Écosse, toutes les provinces. Et c'est très important que nous ayons un plan d'action complète pour un complet changement à l'économie circulaire et la politique de notre parti s'est changée complètement dans les prochaines 10 années. Elle finit des fossil fuels, des énergies compostables de façon et changer complètement une économie électrique. Et je pense que c'est très important que le gouvernement fédéral fait le même investissement qui est fait dans la province d'Alberta, dans l'industrie de combustibles fossiles, qui est fait maintenant dans le secteur renouvelable dans la région atlantique du Canada. Et il y a une grande inégalité avec les politiques et les investissements du gouvernement fédéral. Et en fait, c'est le temps pour la priorisation de la région atlantique. Merci.
Excellent. Et le dernier est animé.
Merci, Jenica. Et oui, bon, la question de la transition, c'est une question très personnelle pour moi. Mon frère, il travaille dans le secteur pétrolier en Alberta. Et moi, je cherche des solutions pour lui et ses compagnes dans le travail. Bon, nous avons touché sur beaucoup de thèmes. Surtout, c'est de trouver des emplois dans des secteurs avec un futur. Par exemple, et qui va faciliter notre transition vers une économie verte, dans des infrastructures vertes, dans des projets publics vertes, aussi dans les énergies renouvelables aussi. Mais surtout, je suis absolument d'accord avec les autres candidats qu'un revenu minimum garanti va aider cette transition, mais il ne faut jamais oublier que c'est les travailleurs, c'est nos frères, nos sœurs, les membres de nos communautés. Il veut savoir que le Parti vert va être là pour eux. Il veut savoir que nous avons le meilleur plan pour leur futur. Et je crois que ça, d'abord et surtout, est le plus important pour faciliter une bonne transition.
Amita, you want to do a rebuttal?
Oui, je veux seulement ajouter quelque chose à ce que David a mentionné. Et je pense que ces changements doivent commencer dans nos communautés, en mettant en place des micro-réseaux, parce qu'il est essentiel d'avoir un système énergétique qui soit démocratisé. Alors, c'est ça. Merci.
Anybody else want to use a rebuttal before we go on to the next question? No? Okay. There are many distinctive characteristics of the Atlantic region. One of them is that many people still live in rural areas. On Prince Edward Island, the majority of citizens live in rural communities. And one of the big drivers in our economy provincially here and in Canada generally has been immigration, newcomers, new Canadians. The vast majority of those new Canadians end up in the larger centers, Toronto, Vancouver, etc. Here on Prince Edward Island, many newcomers have arrived in Prince Edward Island and then moved on to those larger centers. And the question I would like to ask is, what programs would you support to help newcomers to Canada make their homes in rural areas? And I'm actually going to go in reverse order from the first question that Jenica asked. So I'm going to start in Toronto with you, Animé.
Thank you very much, Peter, for that question. And you know, one of the things we've always tried to do in our campaign is to let people from communities speak on behalf of those communities. And so we have a rural revitalization plan that we put out based on green policies, based on the policies of our members. And I encourage people to take a look. We recognize exactly that. I come from an immigrant family, and one of the first things that you do is you want to be somewhere where you have the supports that you need to thrive. And those are not just jobs, but certainly jobs in a language that you can speak, but also services, language services, cultural services. You want to make sure that there are educational possibilities for your children as well. That's very important to immigrant families. And so we need to do all the things that we should do to make rural communities thrive, including the infrastructure projects, telecommunications, etc. But when we're speaking about immigrant communities, we also need to make sure that we're dealing with the cultural elements of the transition as well, and helping them to build a critical mass of support, both within the existing community, but also within also attracting members. And it can happen. I want to say that, having lived for many years in Europe, I went to many tiny little Catalan or Spanish towns where they were very diverse. And it was because they had those supports in place, and it allowed them to thrive. So there is that possibility.
Thank you so much, Animé. Next is Glenn Murray.
Thank you very much. I think a number of things are very important. When I got elected mayor of the city of Winnipeg, the city was losing 2,000 to 3,000 people per year, and Manitoba faces the same challenges, Peter, that you were talking about, is that one of our biggest exports are our young people, and it's hard to build population. So one of the things that we did, and I think there's been some really excellent work being done on anti-racism and systemic discrimination in Halifax, but we set up at the city the first of its kind trilateral refugee and immigration thing. So I, as mayor, set up a fund. We backstopped every single group of named and unnamed refugees to come to the city. So no one had to put up the $10,000. And we literally started growing by 3,000 people per year. But we also, and this is one of the things I think, we've got to mandate our universities and colleges to either recognize foreign credentials when people come with skills, or mandate them to provide the gap closure to meet Canadian standards. We have thousands and thousands of people who come to this country who end up driving taxis who have degrees in engineering and physics, and we have no equivalency system, and it is one of the cruelest things. The other thing we did is we started building cultural centers. So we targeted Philippines, we started in Nigeria, and when people came, we had a Muslim school that helped with Muslim children coming from very socially conservative countries so they could go to a Muslim school. We raised that ourselves. We had a Punjabi and Filipino community center because we have now over 50,000 people. And Atlantic Canada and the Eastern Prairies both have these challenges of finding it hard to retain. The retaining...
Glenn, I'm answering clearly. You've done a lot of work in the area, but I'm going to have to cut you off there.
Thank you very much, Peter. My apologies. Thank you.
No problem. Next is David Werner.
Thank you, Peter. I live in a rural urban riding here on the southwest corner of Vancouver Island. And what I hear from people in the rural parts of our riding here is they need better infrastructure. They want to have better internet connection. They want better public transit so they can connect up with the cities. And if we learn a lesson from COVID-19 is that people can work from anywhere in the country, in rural areas or urban areas, and connect to their work. Let's make that possible. BC has great internet connection in our rural areas and on First Nations reserves, and let's take that as an example for the country. Let's also look at how we enable small-scale agriculture. Young farmers here have really a tough time getting into the business because of land costs. So we're finding solutions with land trusts, enabling young farmers to stay on the farm or purchase new farms through public support. I think it's about networking, it's about empowering, and it's also about creating a sense of community, a welcome community, and that's happening here on South Vancouver Island. It's a model for the country.
Thank you so much, David. Next, we'll go to way up north to Courtney Howard.
Thank you, and very much it's been fun listening to everybody because Glenn, I can tell you got really excited about this. That's awesome, and there's some really good ideas coming out of Vancouver Island too. And so Yellowknife is a town of 20,000 people, and it is incredibly multicultural. Every friend and family member who's ever come up here said, I did not expect this. It looks like Toronto, similar, it's just really, really small. My kids' school is incredibly diverse. And I think that the reason it's working is for a lot of what you've described. So there are good language services. They're really easy to access. There's a building, all the immigrants know to go to it for all help, for everything. And I think people are really welcoming. We helped a woman that I'd actually worked with on a malnutrition project in Djibouti with Doctors Without Borders come here as our live-in caregiver. Jenica, you were asking about caregivers, and rural places are tough if you're a shift worker, so we needed a nanny. And I think the personal relationship just made a tremendous difference. Now she's part of our extended family. Our friends are her friends. And I think that, there's nothing the East Coast does better than hospitality. And so I think the combination of that, programs and then the real sort of one-to-one matching can really make a huge difference. And it's one of the reasons people love Yellowknife. We have one of the best Ethiopian restaurants in Canada, if you can believe it.
Thanks, Courtney. Next, we'll go to Miriam Haddad.
Okay, so, the reality is that each community has its own specific needs. It depends from one place to another. I mean, like in Grand Falls, Grand Sault, New Brunswick, it has different immigration needs than from Chip Harbor, Nova Scotia. So attracting workers and people from around the world can help communities meet their changing human populations and demographics. At the moment, some rural communities in Ontario, for example, are actively working to attract and retain new arrivals. And it's for the economic development. So there's ways to create win-win opportunities for new immigrants, for example, in local businesses, farms, and help have more employees, and we can grow industries and diversify local cultures in rural communities. It's something possible, but you need to have the appropriate program. You need to have, for example, a UBI that can help these new people arriving into the country to go to schools and get some things to be able to get on the workforce. My parents, being civil engineers, came into the country as skilled workers, but their skills were not recognized. So if they had a UBI with 2 young children, they could have went to school and got whatever the education they need to get to have better jobs than being a taxi driver in Montreal and an accountant clerk. So it depends.
I'm sorry, Miriam, I'm going to have to cut you off, but thank you for your personal story there. Next, I'm going to go to the West Coast to Amita Kuttner.
Thank you. I think what it comes down to is making sure that communities have the infrastructure to support new families, as this was mentioned: schools, doctors, social services, available employment, also internet. Living in a rural area in BC, I can say that not all of BC has good internet in rural areas yet. So I would like it to be expanded here as well. And having, as well as this, the community support programs and welcoming environments, and having the option as desirable and presented as available and safe when people are looking at where they can go settle. And absolutely, new people can be quintessentially important to community development, and welcoming them in can create those communities that we need. And I think alongside this, we need to create easier pathways for immigration of every single kind, as we need to welcome more people in. And then when people get here, making sure that they have arrival support when they get here, being able to be a part of that community with language, but also certification for work. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Amita. Now we'll go to Dimitri.
Thank you, Peter. My parents actually came to Canada from Greece in the 1950s after living through the Nazi occupation and the Civil War, and they didn't have any high school education. They were fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to come here by a government-sponsored program. They got on a ship in Europe and traveled to Halifax, as a matter of fact, disembarked there. But they didn't remain. They did what so many others who followed that same trajectory did. They gravitated down to Southern Ontario and ended up in London, Ontario. And I think a big part of the reason why they did that is because others had gone there and perceived, had the belief that there was more economic opportunity and that the language barriers they confronted would be less of a problem. I think one thing we should think very seriously about doing is giving really concrete benefits to immigrants who go to work and live in rural communities in small towns. And one way we can do that is by expediting the processing of their immigration application. So if they're applying for permanent residency, give them access to an expedited process. If they're trying to assist other members of their family to come and live in Canada, give the members of their family the benefit of an expedited processing system in which there are real concrete benefits to the immigrants of living in these communities. And I think I'm very much supportive also of what Glenn suggested, investment in cultural centers in these communities to help them overcome the language barriers, which can be quite formidable.
Thank you so much, Dimitri. And last, with the home field advantage, Judy.
Thank you. Everything that everybody said, I think we're all on the right track. I think it's really important that we make sure that if they have family in Canada, that they can be located there. If they have skills such as farming, that we make sure they have supports in place to do that. I'd like to see more entrepreneurial supports for newcomers to Canada. I know Syrian refugees here that worked as farmers, and yet they aren't working as farmers now, which is really unfortunate because those skills are being misused. They've gone on to be entrepreneurs with community supports. You know, we can work with programs that are already in place with the YMCA, that is to support newcomers. There's really good programs in place in rural communities that work through YMCA facilities that allow them to be in small communities without having to have a larger number of people. We need skills credential mapping. Absolutely. This is a problem even with Canadians moving from province to province, coming in from outside of the country. It's ridiculous that we have people in skills that we desperately need, like healthcare, and they're not able to get that gap education in order to come up to our standards. That really needs to be expedited. And you know, just helping our communities be more welcoming. You know, we have this culture in Atlantic Canada of the comes from away. And it doesn't serve us in this instance. You know, it takes a long time to build up trust in a lot of Atlantic Canadian rural areas. We need to really work on being more welcoming. Here in Digby, we actually have—
I'm sorry, I'm going to be unwelcoming and stop you at that point, Judy. I'm sorry, we're over. And I also owe an apology to Andrew, because I think I described you as the last one, and you aren't Judy, it's Andrew. So my apologies, Andrew, for almost overlooking you.
Not a problem at all. A lot of great things have already been said here. I agree with things that Miriam and Gled said, that skills and training from other countries need to be recognized here. That's one step. In Atlantic Canada, you have the Study and Stay program, which is a very good program to help try to incentivize people who go to universities and colleges in Atlantic Canada to stay there. So we need to enforce more of that and provide more funding to causes like that. But in addition to that, we ought to make sure that there's jobs here for them to actually stay. One of the things that I would like to do is actually provide more tax incentives to small businesses. If I read Statistic Canada correctly, 98% of businesses in Atlantic Canada are all small businesses. So that shows just how important it is to that economy. So we need to make sure that small businesses have the proper tax incentives and the right initiatives so they can afford to hire more people. And also the people that actually want to start their own businesses are afford that outlet to do so. That also requires making sure that we have the proper infrastructure there. Everyone's talked about making sure that we have high-speed internet there. That's very important for the new economy that is working at home. And we also have to make sure that for people that do still get out and have to work in the community, that other infrastructure is in place, such as public transportation.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Back to you, Jenica.
Thank you, Peter. And I mean, just to talk about being a first-time MP, I have to say, about 40 to 60% of our caseloads, you know, and that's across the country, talking with other MPs, has to do with newcomers and helping our immigrant population. So I'm just so glad to hear that there's a commitment to ensuring that we're welcoming and we're doing everything we can for retention efforts, especially in the Atlantic, because it's certainly important. Alors, la prochaine question, c'était un chef du Parti fédéral exige d'être...
Jenica, I'm sorry, I should have asked at the end of that round of anybody.
Rebuttal.
Miriam has her hand up, so my apologies. 3 apologies.
Sorry about that. It just has sunk in. But Courtney, I just want to specify something. Did you really say that we can bring like immigrants to be maids? Like, would you like to expand on this and why this job specifically? Because refugees and immigrants have all sorts of, I mean, they are very often highly educated. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wasn't proposing we expand that program, but it was an existing program under a previous government. And if we want to talk about family balance, there is no childcare available whatsoever for people who work at night in a lot of small towns in Canada. And so, in fact, that was one of the only ways that we could have childcare. We explored every other option, and in fact, went through my sister. She came up here to provide stopgap help. We had several other people in town try, but in fact, this was a woman I actually had a relationship with. I had worked with her. She was a nursing assistant on the Médecins Sans Frontières project we were working on. So this is someone I already knew who had treated me as a sister when I was in Djibouti. She calls me sister. And this was the best way to get her over here. And so I think that clearly, there are many different, you know, immigrants have any number of different things to contribute. There's actually several here who do have their PhD that I talk to as we drive to the hospital in a taxi. And so, yeah, I think that we definitely need bridging programs. And there are doctors in Canada who would... Thanks,
Courtney, for that clarification. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry, back to you, Jenica.
Thank you.
Glenn has his hand up.
Oh, okay.
Glenn.
Yeah, I felt very strongly about something. 70% of, we've been talking, a lot of people have been talking about education and skill sets. I just want to say something. 70% of Canada's immigration, economic growth, according to the Maitri Foundation, came from immigrants who spoke neither French or English and had virtually nothing beyond public education. Most of our entrepreneurs, and for generations, we built this country on people. I worked in bringing a couple of hundred people over from Chechnya where gay lesbian people were being slaughtered. No one asked about that. And I think while education and skills is important, we're going to be in a period of unprecedented global refugees. And I think that we just have to all look back. I'll conclude by this one last sentence, Peter. We did a project in Winnipeg where we took the 100 leading people in the city, entrepreneurs, artists, labor leaders, and found out that 95% of them, if the immigration rules that were in place today were there when their parents came to Canada, they would not be Canadians today. So I think we've got to be careful that we're not excluding people, especially in an age of environmental refugees.
Thank you, Glenn. Jenica.
And if I could just get it on that again, something else I would like to mention, particularly in the Atlantic provinces, I know in New Brunswick this is an issue, is access to primary health care for newcomers, because it's an issue that they're not even aware of coming in. And so that was something that talking with constituents has been brought to my attention, that how difficult it is to find a doctor or an NP to be their primary health care provider. So that's just another issue I'd like to highlight. Alors la prochaine question. Une ou un chef du Parti fédéral exige d'être en mesure de guider l'élaboration des politiques. Elaboration. Concrètement, quelle idée et politique innovante proposez-vous aux Canadiens et Canadiennes afin de mettre un terme aux inéquités systémiques? Alors, systemic inequality. So we're talking now, it's a very hot topic. It's something that's certainly fresh in our minds. So what would you do as our federal leader to ensure that we have good policy that addresses systemic inequalities? La première personne, peut-être Miriam, est-ce que vous pouvez répondre le premier?
Bon, tout d'abord, il faut désinvestir dans la police pour réinvestir dans les services essentiels. Ça inclut en santé mentale, ça inclut concernant les garderies, ça inclut également en santé, sur les soins de longue durée et sur des résidences abordables. Il faut investir dans l'éducation pour être sûr que les enfants qui vont à l'école sont équipés avec les bons matériaux et qu'ils aient un accès à l'Internet. Il faut aussi regarder si on peut investir dans un programme universel de nourriture, de programme pour offrir de la nourriture aux enfants, pour qu'aucun enfant ait le ventre qui est en train de gronder en étant en train de faire des mathématiques. Il faut également amener des jobs, des emplois verts fédéraux garantis qui va main à main avec un revenu minimum garanti ou un revenu universel garanti. Et c'est comme ça, il faut que tout le monde vive dans la dignité en bout de ligne. Et toutes ces mesures, en fait, vont pouvoir réduire les inégalités systémiques et le racisme systémique. Il faut qu'on augmente les taxes sur les plus riches et sur les grandes corporations. Et il faut tout simplement fermer justement l'évasion fiscale qui est envoyée dans les paradis fiscaux. Il faut qu'on combatte les changements climatiques. Il faut faire une transition économique vers une économie qui prend soin de notre planète et de tout le monde. Donc, c'est ça qui va réduire les inégalités. En fait, ce qu'il faut, c'est un Green New Deal. Merci beaucoup.
Excellent, merci beaucoup. Alors, la prochaine, Dimitri, est-ce que vous voulez être le prochain?
Merci, Jenica. L'inégalité dans notre pays est devenue obscène, absolument obscène, et c'est un problème dont je parle tous les jours. Et je sais que dans la région des provinces maritimes, c'est un phénomène qui est particulièrement sévère. Il y a une famille, la famille Irving, qui domine l'économie des provinces maritimes, domine non seulement les industries locales, mais aussi les médias et détiennent des vastes propriétés dans les provinces maritimes. Donc, je sais que les peuples des provinces maritimes sont bien conscients de ce problème. Et pour s'adresser à ce problème, il faut être il faut être audacieux. Moi, je veux monter le taux d'impôt le plus élevé à 75% pour ceux qui gagnent plus que 500 000 $ par année. Et c'est un fait peu connu, mais depuis la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, ici au Canada et aux États-Unis, le taux d'impôt le plus élevé est dépassé 90%. Alors, un taux d'impôt qui s'élève à 75%, c'est modeste de la perspective historique. Non seulement ça, mais on devrait limiter l'accumulation de la richesse, établir une limite fixe et imposer un impôt de 100% sur les gains qui dépassent cette limite-là. Moi, je veux éliminer les milliardaires par notre système d'impôt. Je crois que c'est tout à fait faisable, c'est tout à fait modeste. Ce qu'on a aujourd'hui, c'est une situation extrême et ça suffit. Maintenant, il faut agir.
Absolument. Merci beaucoup. Anami?
Oui, merci. Et bon, c'est une question où nous avons déjà eu beaucoup de rapports, beaucoup de recommandations. Le moment de réflexion s'est passé. Il faut maintenant passer à l'action. La meilleure façon de le faire, c'est d'inclure les personnes qui sont le plus affectées par le racisme systémique, par l'inégalité systémique aussi. Il n'y a pas beaucoup de ces voix autour de la table où les décisions sont faites et c'est surtout pour ça que nous avons une lacune entre toutes les promesses et l'action. Dans notre campagne, nous avons lancé une série de politiques sur les inégalités systémiques. Nous avons touché sur les thèmes d'abord du système de justice criminelle, mais plus que rien, c'est que nos politiques sont créées par des personnes les plus affectées et le but, ça doit être toujours de donner l'accès à l'action à ces personnes. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Andrew? Est-ce que vous êtes prêt?
Sorry, I'm next. Can you just repeat? Sorry, I got to turn this translate thing off. Can you just repeat the question in English, please?
Yeah, so just as a leader of a federal party, especially the Green Party, we're responsible for effective policy change, and particularly I'd like to see what you would do as a leader to impact systemic inequalities that we're seeing. So what policies would you put in place?
Well, the Green Party has many great policies that I would put in place, one of which I think is the guaranteed little income, because a lot of inequality is driven from poverty. So one of our main goals and one of my personal tasks in life is to eliminate poverty. And we can start by implementing a guaranteed livable income. I mean, we can see during the COVID crisis just how important that something like that is. We also need to do as much as we can to provide education to people and to give them a heads up, a leg up whenever possible. And we also have to level the playing field, and that requires looking at starting to have higher income or higher tax rates for larger income corporations and larger income people. That's, to me, the best way to try to tackle this division that's between economic status is to work on eliminating poverty.
Thank you very much. Glenn.
Merci, je suis d'accord avec mes collègues. Je pense que c'est très important que vous offriez des services dans la langue des communautés immigrantes et minorités. C'est très important que les personnes qui sont élues aient participé dans la communauté. Quand je suis le député au centre-ville de Toronto, chaque vendredi, je suis présent dans tous les mosques pour des réunions avec les communautés, ou quand ils vivent. Et c'est très important que les personnes qui habitent dans un quartier, dans une communauté, soient capables de faire des décisions sur l'avenir de ces communautés. Quand je suis un conseiller municipal, nous avons un plan d'action pour chaque quartier qui est créé par les personnes qui habitent dans cette quartier. Des priorités, des logements, des services d'emploi. toutes les priorités établies dans cette communauté. Et la majorité des personnes qui habitent dans cette communauté, des minorités racialisées, excusez-moi. Et je pense que c'est très important que nous sommes reconnus qu'il y a des leaderships dans toutes les communautés et créer des opportunités pour les participations des personnes qui habitent dans les communautés. Quand je suis la maire de Winnipeg, par exemple, à 7 ans, environ 18% de le budget, c'est le budget le budget municipal, c'est pour les polices. Maintenant, c'est plus de 30%. Il manque des services essentiels dans la majorité des municipalités pour donner la capacité à une communauté pour créer des solutions pour les problèmes, pour les défis locaux. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. La prochaine est Judy.
Merci beaucoup. I agree that you know, a lot of the inequality is derived from poverty. So I would be absolutely thrilled if my legacy would be to have some small part in eliminating poverty throughout the world. I've been an anti-poverty advocate for decades now. We know that there's 1 in 3 people food insecure here in Digby. We put together Fresh Food Box to help alleviate that. But we need to be going beyond what's happening locally, but we have to be informed by it. So we have to listen to the nonprofits and the organizations that are on the front lines in the communities who know what the needs are of the communities, and we need to support them. You know, many of them have to have a full-time person who just writes proposals for grants. And that is a huge waste of resources when they're having to put together piecemeal and try to fit programs around the requirements for all of these different grants. We also have to stop just doing reports and leaving them on a shelf. We have the Commission for the Reconciliation Commission. We've done little on that. We have the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls report that came out a year ago, and we've done nothing on that. We have to stop just doing the reports and then letting them languish. We have to take action to make drastic change in these communities because we owe it to Canadian citizens.
Thank you, Judy. Amita?
Merci. C'est vraiment tellement important et personnel pour moi. Je n'ai pas l'accès égal à nos systèmes sociétaux. Et c'est le même pour beaucoup de personnes que je connais. Oui, la pauvreté est un grand problème, mais c'est vraiment pas tout. C'est pourquoi je me concentre sur la justice, l'équité et la décolonisation. Tout le monde doit avoir un accès égal à la vie. Les changements commencent à passer en revue tous nos systèmes et nos programmes gouvernementaux, évaluer et restructurer, questionner, décoloniser. Une partie de ces changements consiste à définancer la police, oui, et à créer des espaces sécuritaires et à fournir les besoins de base de chacun. Et avant toute chose, nous devons réviser et renforcer notre système de santé, et spécialement pour la santé mentale. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Et David, vous avez la prochaine.
Merci pour la question sur l'inégalité économique et puis l'inégalité qui est un vrai fléau au Canada. Je vois ça de deux côtés. D'abord, adresser la pauvreté, on en a déjà parlé avec le revenu garanti minimum et surtout avec l'éducation. L'éducation gratuite est essentielle, je vois, pour adresser la pauvreté, permettre les gens de suivre leurs études, des études payées comme en Allemagne, Norvège, etc. Deuxièmement, il faut vraiment revoir comment on taxe, surtout comment on taxe les riches. Comment est-ce que ça se fait que Irving est capable d'éviter les taxes? Comment ça se fait qu'on n'est pas prêt à aller chercher l'argent au Panama et dans les Caraïbes? Ça, c'est l'autre côté. Troisièmement, une stratégie régionale pour l'équité régionale. On a déjà parlé de décentralisation. L'île du Prince-Édouard a beaucoup bénéficié de la décentralisation du gouvernement fédéral, mais aussi le réseautage, connecter les gens qui sont moins bien nantis avec les réseaux sociaux et l'Internet. Je vois ça comme une approche stratégique prioritaire pour le Parti vert. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Et Andrew, do you have an intervention? Would you like to rebuttal?
Yes, but I was going to wait till the end of. Are we at the end?
No, Courtney is
I'll finish up with her done. Yeah.
Okay, sure. Thank you. And Courtney?
Et oui, je suis d'accord avec ce que les gens ont déjà dit à propos de l'éducation, à propos d'une revenu de base garantie. Je pense qu'il faut vraiment aussi considérer introduire de la garde d'enfants universelle. Je sais que le valédictorien de ma classe médicale, sa mère était infirmière immigrante et il a dû actuellement dormir dans l'hôpital parce que vraiment, il n'avait pas d'autre option. Alors ça, c'est vraiment quelque chose qu'on peut aider les gens pour surmonter les défis. Et ce qu'on a ici dans les territoires du Nord-Ouest, c'est une école politique pour les femmes. Et maintenant, on a le seul premier ministre qui est une femme dans tout le Canada, elle est métis. Et en fait, la moitié de notre cabinet maintenant sont femelles et ils ont tous allé à cette école. Alors, ce qu'ils disent, c'est que, comme on sait, il y a beaucoup d'argent qu'il faut pour faire une course à la chefferie comme ça. On a besoin de rencontrer les gens, il y a des choses à apprendre. On peut aider avec ça. Ils ont obtenu de l'argent fédéral et aussi territorial pour faire cette école. Alors, si on faisait quelque chose comme ça, non seulement pour les femmes, mais pour tous les groupes qui sont moins représentés, je pense que ça peut vraiment aider à commencer à avoir les gens à tous les niveaux pour être dans les positions de pouvoir qui peuvent, à ce moment-là, bien changer le système pour bénéficier à tout le monde.
Excellent, merci beaucoup. Andrew and then Dimitri in intervention.
Yes. The one point I just wanted to add to my answer was talking about the inequality that First Nations and Indigenous Canadians experience right now. Not only is it just a matter of just poverty, I mean, it's just a matter of they just don't have the basic water infrastructure that's needed or the basic food. I mean, these are things that we need to address right away. There's no excuse for that. I'd also like to start to work on a program of having more reserves work out agreements so they can opt out of the Indian Act and have more autonomy over their own affairs.
Great, thank you. Hey, Dimitri?
Yeah, it's encouraging to see all the candidates talk eloquently about the need to eliminate poverty, but I think it's really important to understand that we have to deal with both ends of the income and wealth spectrum. Even if we manage to float all boats and ensure that all people were out of poverty, if we allow a situation of extreme wealth to develop, the wealthy will use that to bend the political and legal system to their will and to claw back the gains of ordinary Canadians and poor Canadians. For example, by dominating the media as the Irving family does in the Maritime provinces. We cannot allow extreme wealth to exist even in a situation where there is no poverty.
Thank you. So Judy and Amita?
Okay. I want to just put out there, I'm a real fan of the donut economic model because it provides a guideline that ensures that everybody has their basic human needs met. And that is the floor that everybody should be safely on. But it also has an upper limit on not allowing growth beyond what the capacity is of our planet. And I think that those are two guidelines that really speak to Green Party values. It speaks to our principles. We use our principles as those kind of guidelines already. So if we can look at them in those terms, and our current platform planks and policies fit nicely into those slots. So if people haven't looked at that yet, look at the donut economic model. It came out in 2012. It's being used in over 100 places around the world right now with amazing success.
Merci. Je veux dire que quand on parle des peuples autochtones, des droits et souveraineté des peuples autochtones, c'est très important de ne pas dire les autochtones canadiens, mais parce que quand on a une relation vraiment nation à nation, c'est pas correct. C'est un peu difficile pour tout le monde. Just to say quickly, also in English, it's important we don't say Indigenous Canadians. To have a truly nation-to-nation relationship, it's not properly acknowledging sovereignty. Thank you. Merci.
On to Peter.
Thank you.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
looking at the time and I'm chatting with Vicky. And if we want to finish anywhere close to 8:30, we're going to have to make that the last question. So we have a minute each for closing remarks from everybody, and then Jenica and I will wrap things up after that. So Dimitri just made a comment about how eloquently everybody has spoken tonight, and I would just like to absolutely second that. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this debate. I'm looking forward to the finishing remarks, and then again, before we wrap up, Jenica and myself will just say goodbye. So this is the order for the closing remarks, and again, you have a minute to do this, and we'll start with Miriam.
So we are living through a climate crisis. It is now or never to do something, because my generation and the next are facing extinction. I decided to run to make Canada and the Green Party a better place. People like me are often left out of the conversation, and it is time that we become the driving force in Canadian politics. The fact that I got this far is an act of resistance. And I am here because I have dedicated, amazing team and amazing support that is going on. I am a socialist because I believe that we need to fight for a better future together, to fight systemic oppression together, and to fight for a Green New Deal together. We need to show political courage, be bold. We need to create an economy that cares for the planet and for each other. People are counting on us for their survival. We need a Green New Deal that leaves no one behind. Thank you, and solidarity to everyone.
Thank you so much, Miriam. Next is Dimitri.
Let me just do one of those for Miriam. I'm with you, Miriam. Look, I couldn't agree more that we are in need of bold transformational changes of the type that Miriam discussed. We need to confront the fact that, as Naomi Klein has argued so eloquently so many times, the fundamental cause of the climate crisis that threatens the future of our children is our economic system. It is a deeply corrupt, unjust system that generates extreme wealth at the expense of the most vulnerable members of our society. And it's time for us to imagine a new way of organizing our economy. It's time for us to talk about limits on wealth. It's time for us to talk about high taxes on the highest income earners. It's time for us to talk about a universal basic income, limiting the spread between executive compensation and worker compensation. There's a whole range of measures we can take, and I believe that Canadians are fully supportive of that kind of an agenda. I hope you'll get on board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. Next up is Andrew.
Well, thank you everyone for attending this evening. I truly want the Green Party to win. I've been a 4-time candidate. That's not near as many as Peter has been, but I'm dedicated to keep on running until we do win. And being a Green Party candidate, I know what that takes. I've seen what the mistakes and the missteps that the Green Party has done in the past. And I want to learn from that. I want this Green Party to learn from that so we can actually form government. Again, we have these great policies, but we need to get into power to start turning those policies into legislation. And I'm the person that can make that happen. I know that we can win if we stay in the center. The climate emergency requires all hands on deck. That means we need to get voters from across the political spectrum to buy into our plan and to stand by it until we actually form government and win. I know we can do it. That's why I've been a Green for as long as I have. I had other opportunities to join other parties, but this was the party that I knew had the best values. So I stuck with the party through hard times, and I know that green times are coming. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Next up is Judy.
Merci beaucoup. No, I got into the Green Party because we were running out of time, because of the IPCC report. I'm feeling such an urgency. We cannot win this by incrementalism. We cannot survive this by incrementalism. We have to be prepared to work together to take those big, bold steps. You know, in West Nova, I took the vote from 4.1 to 12.69%. We started with nothing. We started with $36 in the bank account, and we had the previous candidate. We built a team. We got on the ground, and we learned a lot. There's a lot of things we know we need to do in between elections. We need to have every single one of our EDAs working around the clock, around the calendar, and working all the time, not going away between elections. We need to support them and make this happen. Team building is one of my specialties. It is what I did my master's thesis on, was building and maintaining highly effective teams. I've spoken at international conferences on this subject. It is something that we really need to do. We need to pull together. We need to get all these amazing fellow contestants elected next time. Then, with the existing caucus, then we would have official party status. We could do that for the next election. The election after, absolutely, we need to be official opposition. I've had dreams of waking up in Stornoway. So come on, people, we got to make this happen. So join me at www.judyanngreen.com. We're building our team. Great opportunity to have experience that you can take forward and work in your EDAs going forward on any of these campaigns. You will have a wonderful opportunity to learn those skills that will make us win in the next election. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy. Next up is Courtney.
Hi, thanks. And really, it is a privilege to get to know this group because there are so many good ideas and I'm learning from all of you. So we are at a moment of health crisis. I've been an emergency doctor for about 12 years now. I've never seen so many people so vulnerable. And so what that means is that there is an opportunity to both support them in a way that makes a huge difference and use this as a time, like Naomi Klein said, of crisis, good work, instead of crisis capitalism. We can move the dial on all of these issues. The reason I entered the race is because there's a lot of evidence that shows that presenting climate change in a health frame is the best way to motivate populations to take action across the political spectrum. So if we speak to the strong desire that people have right now for stability, for health, for a healthy future for themselves and their kids, we can be the optimistic party of solutions that puts evidence-based, values-driven, action-oriented items in front of a Canada that is thirsty for that right now and makes them happen. So I look forward to working with all of you on that. And if you want to learn more about a just transition, Dimitri and I are on in 6 minutes on a different webinar to talk about orphan oil and gas well reclamation and how to counter corporate power and bring about solutions that work for people.
Thank you, Courtney. I'm super glad that we're finishing on time now. And I'm going to move to animé next.
Thank you so much for the opportunity this evening, and I can't wait to get out there. My husband and his cousins inherited a little piece of land in Pictou County, and so I'm very excited to be spending some time out there with you soon. In terms of me, I am a lawyer. I am an international affairs professional. I'm a former diplomat. I have spent a lot of time working on diversifying institutions. I founded one of the first institutions in Canada focused on diversity in political representation. I am someone that believes very, very much in the project of the Green Party. I'm excited by the fact that we are always the first to propose the evidence-based policies that are most needed at a time when innovation is going to be so important in solving the crises that we face. We're going to be more needed than ever. I'm encouraging everyone to visit our website to see our platform on rural revitalization, long-term care, a just transition, written by people most affected by those issues. Merci pour l'accueil chaleureux ce soir. Nous sommes une campagne bilingue. Je vous encourage de visiter notre site web et de participer dans notre projet. Et à la prochaine, et je vous vois tous en Pictou.
Thanks so much, Animé. Next is Amita.
Merci. Et merci tout le monde. Thank you everyone, especially to Jenica and Peter for hosting. We have a huge opportunity to grow. Nous avons l'opportunité en tant que parti d'agrandir et de devenir le mouvement qui peut unir notre pays pour un avenir durable et juste. We are the movement that will unify our country for a just and sustainable future. We're seeing new people show up every week to help build the movement, and through radical honesty, our campaign is attracting lots of youth, and they're the ones who are leading. We're having a lot of fun, and you're very welcome to join us. De nouvelles personnes nous rejoignent chaque semaine pour construire ce mouvement. Grâce à une honnêteté radicale, notre campagne attire beaucoup de jeunes, et ce sont eux qui mènent. Nous amusons beaucoup et vous êtes tous les bienvenus dans notre campagne. Please visit amitakutner.ca to join or connect with me. Veuillez visiter mon site web amitakutner.ca pour nous rejoindre. Merci encore.
Thank you, Amita. Thank you. Next is Glenn Murray.
We have a huge challenge. We're facing a lot of shattered lives in Canada as a result of COVID. A guaranteed livable income is critical, and we've got to start being specific about what it is and how it works. We're now becoming one of the fastest growing emissions centers of emissions on our already high level of greenhouse gas emissions, and there is no plan in place. There's no carbon budget, there's no drawdown program. If we as a party in the next few years could achieve those two objectives, an effective transformation and une économie circulaire sans déchets, sans de gaz de fer, des budgets de carbone, une revenu de substances garantie. And we're at 4% in the polls right now. 33% of Canadians are interested in talking to us. A circular economy, a socially just agenda isn't the purview of traditional socialism. We don't want to push the Tom Rands, the green clean tech sector out. So let's not run on labels, let's run on substance and plans. Let's not have ideological gatekeepers to our party. Let's let the 1 in 3 Canadians who's interested in us find a pathway to join us. Thank you, merci, bonsoir.
Thank you, Glenn. And the final word from David Werner.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Jenica, Vicky, and everybody who pulled this together. It's a real honor to be here with these fantastic candidates. I'm really looking forward to working together and all winning seats in the House of Commons in the next election together. Time is short. We're facing a mortal danger in the climate emergency, and what we need is a credible, very progressive, and very effective Green Party of Canada to win seats, take on the climate emergency, and form a majority government in Ottawa. If we can't do that, form the balance of power. And if we can't do that, let's get official party status. To do that, what we need is a leader who can campaign perfectly fluently in English and French, win seats in New Brunswick, Quebec, Eastern Ontario, the French shore of Nova Scotia. On a besoin de quelqu'un qui est capable de gagner, des débats dans les 2 langues officielles et capable de faire campagne dans la porte-à-porte. C'est ça ce que je vous offre. I can also offer that we will win this seat in British Columbia. Esquimalt-Saint-Suk is a winnable riding, and we came a close second last time. Let's elect a leader who can win the seat the leader ran in 2019. Thank you for your time. davidwerner.com is my website. Please go and click on volunteer or even donate. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, David. It has been an absolute pleasure and a privilege to be a part of this evening's forum. Everybody spoke so well, fabulous ideas. And from Prince Edward Island, I'd just like to remind everybody that an election before we became the official opposition, the Greens here were sitting at 4% in the polls. And in one election cycle, we became the official opposition. So we're already ahead of that nationally. It sometimes feels in politics that change comes at a glacial pace, but that's not always true. And if we can fire up the electorate and fill them with all of the wonderful ideas that I've heard around the table tonight, then there's no reason why the same thing cannot happen federally. I'll pass it. So thank you everybody for participating. Thank you everybody who watched online. And thank you, Jenica, for co-hosting with me. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Peter. It's always wonderful to be with you, even if it's virtually. So thank you so much to everybody. And, I began my talk today, just talking about the energy that you've all given me, that you give the party. And I'm so thankful for that, because we need it in this time. And I hope that I can send a little bit of that back to you. So just thank you for your efforts. Thank you, your teams. We don't do this alone. There are so many people behind each and every one of you, I'm sure. So thank you to everyone out there as well. And just to leave you with a final thought, during the election, I was interviewed, and one of the questions I was asked was, if you could give a message to yourself in 6 months' time, what would that message be? And I was tired and it was near the end, and I said, my message would be hang in there, because I know that it's tough, but it's certainly rewarding. And like I said, you've already made change. You really have. So just keep on going. That finish line is just ahead, and I'm just so proud and excited for the future that's ahead of the Green Party. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much, especially to Jenica and Peter for being such wonderful moderators tonight, and for the example that you provide in Atlantic Canada. The kind of inspiration that you offer is really helpful, I think, at times for all of us. So thank you. Thanks so much to everyone who was here watching, who submitted questions ahead of time. There were so many questions. This has been the best attended webinar that we've had yet in this series, and hopefully we can keep that momentum going. So if you felt like you didn't hear enough from these candidates, we do have 3 more next week on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. You can go to greenparty.ca and click on Leadership 2020 to get the schedule of events and to register for those. You can also find the links to all these contestants' websites, social media, and of course their donate buttons. And Zara is also putting the nomination link in the chat there. If you want to help these contestants stay in the race, just take a minute to send in a nomination. And if you happen to not yet be a member, you have until September 3rd to join if you want to vote for one or more of these great contestants. So just click greenparty.ca/join. Signing up will take 5 minutes, and it'll be the best used 5 minutes all week. Merci beaucoup encore une fois. Merci à nos traducteurs, Peter et Reban, pour vos efforts, et bonne soirée à tout le monde.